Podcasting from Singapore and broadcasting all around the world. You're listening to the EdTech Chat Podcast, taking the pulse of educators from all over the globe and bringing what you need every week. Now, over to your host, Craig Kemp.
Welcome to episode 33 of the EdTech Chat Podcast, the last episode of 2020. I'm your host, Craig Kemp, and I'm thrilled to have your support. I continue to work with the incredibly talented Mark Quinn to improve the final audio quality of this podcast. He has his own podcast production studio that provides editing and mastering services to content creators. To connect with Mark, please see the details in the podcast notes below. As I've mentioned before, I've grown my Ignite EdTech consultancy team to include some of the best EdTech leaders from all over the globe. Each week, I want to take a few moments to introduce a new member of our team that you may like to chat to about supporting you in your school or company. Today, it's my pleasure to introduce you to Tim Evans. Let's have a listen to our brief chat. Thank you for joining me today, Tim. As a valued member of the Ignite EdTech consulting team, you work with schools all over the world to help them thrive in many different ways. Tell us a little bit about your current role, your experience, and your areas of expertise.
Hey, Craig, sure. So my name's Tim Evans. I'm currently based in Hong Kong at Stanford American School, where I'm the Educational Technology Coordinator. I'm originally from Europe, Wales, UK, where I taught for 3 years, and then I got into the international scene via Spain. So I was 6 years in Spain. I'm now in my 4th year here in Hong Kong and absolutely loving it. So my role here in Hong Kong sees me support students, teachers and parents. I'm constantly looking to integrate technology with an eye on having it there to support teaching and learning.
That's awesome, Tim. And, I know the work that you do and the stuff you're sharing online all the time is really inspirational. What are you most passionate about right now in education?
At the moment, my passion lies with collaboration and connection. I feel in the current climate, it's even more important, where we do feel we may be a little bit separated from just friends and families, but also professionally. So I'm looking at ways where we can continue to collaborate, we can continue to connect, and not just students. This is teachers as well. As educators, I think we are stronger together, and where we can look to share and learn from each other is only better for and in the best interest for our students.
Tim, tell us about a time when you helped others succeed and thrive.
So, over the last couple of years, I've learned so much from people such as yourself, Craig, but also other educators in and around the region and globally. So it taught me the idea that there's so much expertise out there. So to begin with, I was taking a lot of advice from people, but now I feel I'm at a stage where I can actually give some things back. So where I'm exploring best practices, exploring tools and exploring actual platforms in my current role here in Hong Kong, with that experience, then I look to share it. So a few months ago, as most of the world did, we all seemed to go online. I looked then to, if I can say it a bit embarrassingly, step up and see where I can support people. And then I reached out to, it started off with friends and colleagues who'd supported me. And then that idea, you're big on Twitter yourself, Craig, so that kind of trickles down then, and you can actually look to support people. And it's something I'm proud to do. And something that I will continue to do. As technology develops, so do we need to develop, and we need to evolve with it.
It's a fantastic place to be in, I think, mate, and being connected on social media as you are and the authentic sharing that you do, it's fantastic to learn and grow. How do you help schools as a consultant, and how would schools and EdTech companies benefit from working with you?
I look at it as if I was looking for support, and the main thing I look for is experience. I think it's really important that the people who are giving you that support and that guidance have up-to-date experience on how things are currently working. And I think that's one of my strengths. I worked day to day with students, teachers in education. So I do think that my experience is growing. And this is something that I would look to share with you guys. And there is sometimes no right answer, but sometimes sitting down with someone and discussing how things could potentially work is a great way of actually finding what suits you, knowing that there's not one size fits all. So I think it's best to have conversations, to connect, collaborate, and find out best solutions for you as educators and for your students.
For more information about Tim and the rest of the Ignite EdTech consulting team and how to inquire, visit igniteedtech.com/our-team. The link is in the description below. Tim, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you very much, Craig.
Last week, I encouraged you to go away and be thankful to the people around you. I hope you took the opportunity to do that. I encourage you to check out the social streams to see what others said and listen back to last week's episode. This week, I want you to think about what your EdTech highlight of 2020 was and what are your goals for 2021. When you think about the major successes and failures you have had in 2020, how can you redefine them to ensure that you help to improve and grow next year? What have you learned from being in remote learning scenarios? And how do you see yourself adapting and changing as an educator in 2021? I look forward to hearing your responses soon. A tool that has positively impacted the authentic and purposeful use of technology into classrooms and meeting rooms that I have worked in is GoBoard. GoBoard is a simple yet powerful tool to connect and learn. GoBoard is a first-of-its-kind free online tool that combines video conferencing with an interactive canvas. It's designed to help students collaborate one-on-one on virtually any topic. Simply create a GoBoard, share the link, and begin sharing knowledge face-to-face. There's never anything to download. With GoBoard, you can see and hear the other person, or just type back and forth. You can share the graphing calculator, molecular bonds creator, reference library, and other tools, and you can also upload work to a shared canvas by simply snapping a photo and texting it in. I highly recommend you take a look at goboard.com. The link is in the description below. This week, I wanted to spend some time talking about the EdTech highlights of 2020 and what we should look for and prepare for in 2021. There are so many great things to talk about, and of course, so many frustrations thanks to COVID that we're going to sweep under the rug and hope that 2021 is going to be a little bit better. Here are my top 5 things to be thankful for in 2020. Number 1. When forced into lockdown and remote learning, teachers all over the world were able to adapt and change their teaching practices, their philosophies, and grow their capabilities overnight. They adapted their lesson plans and their ways of teaching with no warning, and they learned to teach in ways that most had never done before. Teachers adapted and grew their capacity for the use of technology fast. Online learning became the new normal, and teachers were able to thrive in an environment that most were uncomfortable in. Don't get me wrong, this wasn't smooth sailing, but I'm incredibly proud of every educator I know and I'm connected with for their professionalism and their ability to adapt at such short notice and still do justice to the learning of their students during unprecedented times. Number 2. As a lot of countries globally start to move out of remote learning and start thinking about how to adapt and change again while still moving forward with what we're all calling the new normal, the term blended learning has been thrown around. A space where we find the perfect mix between face-to-face and online learning. Some of us have been doing blended learning for years, and in countries like the UAE, they've hinted at the idea of never going back to 100% face-to-face teaching, which is a big step in our potential new normal. Teachers have learned how to teach and be successful in a blended learning classroom, and I've seen so many amazing examples of excellent practice in classrooms from all over the world that I hope becomes the gold standard because of the benefits it brings to teaching and learning. Number 3. A flurry of EdTech tools have graced us with their free extended trials, which has been amazing, but within this, we've seen a surge in tools that are just not quite ready for the market yet. Luckily, there have been some shining lights, and teachers have learnt to be strategic about the tools they chose and the tools they use to help be more efficient and effective with their teaching. Schools have started to implement strategies for the use of tools, and EdTech companies have started to ask better questions of schools so they can help solve their problems. It's an exciting development and one I follow closely to help both schools and EdTech companies thrive in 2021 and beyond. Number 4. One of my big takeaways from 2020 has been the closing of the gap between schools and parents. For the first time in my career as an educator, I've seen a genuine understanding and realization from parents of just how hard teachers work. For the first time in many years, parents have had to experience how time-consuming, how exhausting, and how many hats you have to wear to support students as a teacher throughout remote learning. Multiply that by 30, and you have your class. Just a snapshot of what it's like to manage teaching and learning every day during remote learning has been enough to start shifting parents' mindsets of education. Maybe they will start to understand why we deserve those holidays. I still think, though, that there's more that we can do to push this agenda, and we should continue to push this into 2021. Number 5. My final takeaway from 2020 is mentioned briefly above as the growth of online communities. The coming together of people to a digital space to learn, grow, and connect has been so pleasing to see after being so committed to the online world for growth and development myself for the last 10 years. Twitter has grown in popularity and teachers are jumping on other online community building tools in the truckloads to learn, grow, and connect when being face-to-face hasn't been an option. I love this, and I hope that we continue to see this growth over the coming months and years. I, for one, won't be moving away from this space, and I will always be here to support anyone wanting to connect and thrive online. In addition to the top 5 takeaways that I just shared, I also wanted to share my top EdTech tools. Here are my top 8 EdTech tools of 2020 that you need to connect and explore with over the holiday season. I've put all the links to these in the description below. Number 1, Flipgrid. Empowering every voice with video learning. It's simple, free, and accessible to have video discussion experiences for pre-K to educators to adult learners and families with Flipgrid. Number 2, Seesaw. Creating online connections between home and school with their powerful portfolio and online learning tool used by thousands of schools globally. Number 3, Firefly Learning. One of the best learning management systems, virtual learning spaces, and community builders on the market, which has helped thousands of schools globally over the past several months. Their newly launched parent portal is a game changer, and their focus on listening to teachers has been exciting to see. Number 4, Hologo World. A new company in the augmented or AR reality space, again, focused on listening to what teachers want and need and bringing them a solution to their problems. Hologo are in the development phase and currently piloting with schools all over the world. Hologo World, it's one to jump on right now. Number 5, Education Perfect. An old face in the Australia and New Zealand market, but something new globally this year. Education Perfect is the world's leading content provider for engaging digital learning resources in all subject areas and curriculums. It's a game changer for learning. The current developments have been amazing, especially for students aged 10 and above. Number 6, Clanbeat, a startup company out of Estonia doing inspirational things for education in the space of well-being. Their new well-being product for students is now in the hands of hundreds of schools globally, supporting students in their well-being journeys. This is a must-have app in my opinion, as we strive to thrive with our well-being in 2021 and beyond. Number 7, Padlet. One of the best ways to collaborate and share learning, and with their school's functionality, it's now secure and safe to use. I love its use in any K-12 environment and even into adult learning with professional development. A great one to add to the toolkit. And number 8, Buncee. Buncee is a web-based tool for creating interactive multimedia presentations. Create and share engaging content with students, educators, parents, and more. Through creativity and deep engagement, students independently visualize their ideas and retain concepts for longer. A great tool that's taken the world by storm. I've provided the links to all 8 of these tools in the podcast notes below. I encourage you to go back and explore them all. Sign up to your favorites in preparation for the calendar year ahead. Looking forward to 2021, I am excited for the continued development of learning communities online and seeing more people come on board to connect, learn, and grow. It's been so powerful for me in my career and in my learning that I can't wait to share that with others. I'm also excited about the developments in technologies, especially in things like wearables and tools that can make a teacher's life more efficient. There are going to be fast developments in technologies, and I hope that schools place an emphasis on professional learning, capacity building, and strategy development in order to help their staff stay ahead of the game and ready for the change. Over the holiday period, take time to think about the good things that have helped you in 2020 and make sure that you bring that positive energy into 2021. I look forward to hearing from you soon. Every week, I bring you a short interview with some of my edu heroes, an engaging learning experience with someone who makes a difference in education every day, with a particular focus or angle towards educational technology. This week, I had the absolute pleasure of chatting with Sonny Magana. Let's have a listen to the chat. Today, I have the honor of speaking with Dr. Sonny Magana. You might know him as @SonnyMagana on Twitter. Sonny and I have recently been connected thanks to many members of my PLN recommending him, and boy, were they right. Sonny is an award-winning teacher, pioneering educational technology researcher, best-selling author, and CEO of Magana Education. Dr. Magana's latest book, Disruptive Classroom Technologies, introduced the T3 framework for innovation, which has been hailed as a visionary work, truly insightful and inspirational. Sonny, it's an incredible pleasure to have you on the show today. Are you ready to talk about education and technology integration?
It's a pleasure's all mine, Craig. Thanks very much. Yes, absolutely ready.
Right, let's go. Why don't you start by telling us a little bit about your current role and what inspires you to do what you do?
Yeah, happy to. So I started Magana Education 5 years ago to expand a body of research work that I've been developing since 1983. So I've really been researching the impact of technology and learning since the early 80s. Kind of an old dog in this game. And so I've made a lot of mistakes, and I've learned from every single mistake. But on the whole, I've been really kind of pursuing this idea that technology can indeed enhance student learning and allow learners to do things that they couldn't possibly do in the absence of technology. But it's been rather elusive. It's been an elusive pursuit because the overall impact of technology on student learning has been downright dismal. I have the real honor of working with Professor John Hattie, who he and I did some work, and I published some of his findings along with my findings. And the average impact of technology is a dismal effect size of 0.34. That's really alarming because technology is very popular and its use is widespread. But I don't think we're getting our bang for the buck. I think most education systems have developed learning environments that are technologically rich, but innovatively poor. And my pursuit is to reverse that, is to help shift the conversation and the thinking away from a tech-centric view and more to a learner-centric, learning-centric view. And my research shows that that makes all the difference in the world. So that's what I'm doing now, and it's expanding and continuing a line of inquiry that I started 4 decades ago.
Wow. And when we think about educational technology and the authentic and purposeful integration of that into classrooms, what's your best advice for educators in relation to EdTech?
The first bit of advice would be beware of geeks bearing gifts. You know, there are so many edu celebrities that really kind of focus on the tool, and they become very popular and very kind of famous, really, by focusing on a particular tool ambassadorship. They're ambassadors of different tools. And I think we need to reject that and instead focus on the research. What does the research tell us? And as I said, Hattie's meta-analysis shows that the impact of technology on student learning has been dismal. But I've been, on this line of inquiry that shows when students engage in highly reliable learning practices. And to me, that means when students learn how to optimize their learning, that changes the nature of things and allows students 360 degrees of freedom to use a variety of technology tools to produce knowledge and thought artifacts, to archive those artifacts, to extend those artifacts, to collaborate with others on those artifacts and contribute to the learning of others. The effect size of the strategies in my T3 framework were observed to be 1.6, a whopping 1.6, which those of you that are familiar with John Hattie's work and his effect size calculator, an effect size of 1.6 is extraordinarily large. It's equivalent to a quadrupling of student learning. What excites me the most is that all over the world, educators are now engaged in the language of impact. We're developing a kind of impact literacy. So when students engage in the sequence of strategies in my T3 framework, they can quadruple their learning. That's really exciting.
Yeah, it's incredible, that effect size that you're sharing. And we'll make sure we put some links in the description below as well for people to be able to click through and follow up on some of that, because I know that they'll be wanting to jump on it, myself included. We all engage using technology tools, and I could name a few that I use every day. Point us to an EdTech tool that you currently love using in your day-to-day work that makes a difference for you.
Well, one of the strategies in the T3 framework, by the way, the T3, that stands for the 3 domains of learning with technology: translational, transformational, and transcendent. In the transformational phase, the second phase, that's when students wield technologies to plan for their learning, express and represent their knowledge gain, and produce learning artifacts, which represent what they know and what they can do. They can also then create learning tutorials to teach others what they know and what they can do. So the tools that hold a tremendous amount of value that I really love using are things like Screencastify and Nearpod and Flipgrid, because students can use those tools to capture their speculative thinking and share how they are currently understanding a concept, whether it's a math concept or a concept in the sciences or in history or any subject, really. Their speculative thoughts give us a real insight into how students think. And it also gives them insight into their thinking pathway. So tools that I am the most fond of are those tools which allow students to make their thinking fully explicit. Now, John Hattie talks about visible learning, and it's wonderful. The visible learning model, I reckon, is the most highly vetted learning model that exists. But when you add the layers of T3, the technology on top of it, the effect sizes are simply explosive. When students make their learning explicit using a variety of tools, a variety of media, that's sound, that's visual, that's text, words, images, movement, then all those senses are brought to bear on the learning moment at that time. So I love things that allow students to produce representations of the learning and continue to add to them.
Learning's important to all of us, Sonny. Tell us about a book or a resource that you've been reading lately, or just one of your all-time favorites, and tell us why we should be exploring it.
A book that has really kind of captured my attention of late is called the EduProtocols, written by Marlena Hebern and John Carippo. I met them last year at ISTE in Philadelphia, and I actually met John a little bit before that anyway, and we decided to merge our worlds together. I love the EduProtocols because they're actual lesson frames that teachers can use in their classrooms to enhance learning and use these frames over and over again. And when we met, we hit it on like a house on fire. They said, well, we love your T3 framework because it really aligns well with our concept of these lesson frames. And I said, well, I love your lesson frames because they really align very well with my conceptual model of the T3 framework. So I really like the EduProtocols book, and our worlds have now merged. And now we're developing a body of work called the T3 EduProtocols. And these are lesson frames that are aligned with the T3 framework and new lesson frames that folks can use. And we've actually started a new cyber lab. So we don't know what's going to happen with school next year. We doubt that we will have face-to-face school in the United States next year. So I think many teachers are going to have to be forced into online learning. Well, Marlena and John and I have developed these cyber labs that are synchronous and asynchronous learning experiences for teachers to master the art and science of cyber learning so they can be masterful cyber teachers and be prepared for whatever eventuality the start of the school year brings, whether it's a fully online learning, hybrid learning, or face-to-face learning.
It's an interesting time ahead, isn't it? It's something that we didn't expect, and we were thrown in the deep end, like you said. But I think many countries around the world are leading the way, not only with their response to COVID-19, but also their approach to the future of education. And I'm excited about that. And Singapore just released a few things over the last week. One of those was a move forward of a one-to-one device rollout for all secondary students here in public schools. That was supposed to happen by 2025, and they've just announced by the end of 2021. So next year, every single student in Singapore in secondary school will have a device, which is a really, really exciting change and a turn for the better here. And it's exciting that governments are investing in education because that really is our future. You've talked about this a lot, and you've touched on some of the things in your book, and you've touched on the T3 framework, but tell us a little bit more about your books and what inspired you to write them. And of course, why should we read them?
Yeah, thanks very much. Great question. 25 years ago, I started the first cyber school in my state, in Washington State. And arguably, I think it was the first one in the United States. And it was a very well-researched model that is still meeting the needs of kids today. And that model, the cyber school model, is one that needs to be scaled right now. The work that I've done around that, I've just discovered all these wonderful bits of knowledge, wisdom that you get from falling and picking something up while you're down there. Failure is really, we tell kids all the time, failure is not an option. But I think failure is the best option when it comes to meaningful learning. So, I've failed many times in developing a pathway forward with technology, and I decided to write about it and share, my journey. The cyber journey, for example, is one that I'm writing about right now. I'm writing a book called "The Heart and Science of Modern Learning," and it's taking these principles of cyber education, one of which you touched upon, is universal and equitable access to content and ICT. All means all. And in order for a country's educational system to be relevant and meaningful and future ready, we have to prepare our students with the devices that they'll need to be future ready. But that's not enough. Just having access to the tools is not enough. Every child also, the second principle of cyber education or modern education is that all students need to have a personalized academic growth plan that's tailored to their needs, tailored to their passions, their purpose, and is driven by their interests. That's the second principle. The third principle is they need to have teachers who listen to them. Availability of online instruction and guidance, and teachers who listen to students' voices. Flexible scheduling is the fourth principle of cyber learning or modern learning, where students may want to learn, maths at 11 o'clock at night, or at 4 o'clock in the morning, or 2 in the afternoon. Learning can happen anywhere, anytime. So they need to have some flexibility. And the fifth principle is multiple opportunities for students to demonstrate their mastery. So that's one of the books I'm writing at the moment. And it's really just about sharing my learning. My books are really kind of a journal. It's a way for me to journal my experiences and contribute to the knowledge base that exists. The first book that I wrote with Dr. Robert Marzano, who's my co-author, and we called it Enhancing the Art and Science of Teaching. Bob's very well known for his wonderful teaching framework called The Art and Science of Teaching. But like John, he hadn't really been brought up in the technology phase. He didn't teach when technology was available. So we connected and wrote a companion called Enhancing the Art and Science of Teaching with Technology. And it's very well research-based and driven by research and had wonderful practices. My latest book is called Disruptive Classroom Technologies. And I kind of, extended that and went on a new direction and came up with this T3 framework for innovation, which has been, as I mentioned, vetted, peer-reviewed, and these sequences have an effect size of 1.6 and some that were even higher. In addition to the book I'm writing right now, The Heart and Science of Modern Learning, I've been working with a number of other authors, John Curipo and Marlena Hebron, and I'm writing a book called The 7 Habits of Meta Learners. I got the idea from a book that Alvin Toffler wrote in the 1970s called Future Shock. And Alvin Toffler really predicted the rise of the internet and computer networks back in the 70s. And he said, he gave a quote, and I'm starting the book with this quote, which is this: "The illiterate of the 21st century aren't those who can't read and write, but those who can't learn, unlearn, and relearn." And to me, that's the essence of meta learning.
Yeah, it's a good quote. Actually, it's a quote that I use a lot in my speaking when I'm talking, because it's one of the ones that I am a huge advocate for, that whole idea of needing to learn, unlearn, and relearn, because we're in a world that changes so quickly that without that ability to relearn, we're lost.
Right.
I love it.
Yeah, and we need to be agile. Yeah, so I've identified 7 habits, and the most masterful learners do these habits, but they may not be fully conscious about them, may not be mindful about their habits. So it's possible to be mindful and not masterful, but it's not possible to be masterful without being mindful. And so what I want to do is raise awareness of these 7 learning habits so that every school child in every country engages in learning how to learn and learning how to optimize their learning and making these 7 habits part of their everyday experience. And that's what a habit is. A habit is something you do without thinking about it. You need to be mindful, but when students engage in these 7 habits, I reckon we will have an explosion in student growth and development by learning how to learn.
It's It's a great concept. And Sonny, you've shared so many insights here today that I know the listeners are going to want to jump on and follow more and get your book. And we'll put all those links in the description. But what's the best way for our listeners to follow and connect with you?
Well, globally on Twitter is a wonderful way to do it. So I'm just at Sonny Magana, Magana, or on my website, which is maganaeducation.com. So I have a lot of resources and links to the projects that I'm working on, the Cyber Lab, some online courses where folks can learn about the T3 Academy for teachers, for leaders, and higher education instructors who are also thrown into the deep end of online learning.
Sonny, thank you so much for your time today.
It's my pleasure, Greg. Thanks very much for a most enjoyable conversation.
This is the last podcast episode for the 2020 season of the EdTech Chat Podcast. We'll be taking a few weeks off as we relax, unwind, and spend time with our families and friends. We hope you get the opportunity to do the same. We'll be back with a new season on our newly named Ignite EdTech podcast on the 22nd of January 2021. One of the things I love doing is giving away prizes as a thank you for tuning in, listening, and hopefully subscribing to the EdTech Chat podcast. Last week, I gave away a huge haul of 8 different prizes from Michael Lubelfeld and Scott McLeod. To win, you needed to complete the form at bit.ly/edtechwin. The winners have already been contacted directly by me, and they are Nicola Ball, Brad Cates, Bridget Crooks, Priya Rajagopalan, Katie Steers, Todd Davis, Chris Mott, and Richard Brewster. Congratulations to you all. This week, I'm giving away a free registration place at Sonny Magana's T3 Academy, valued at a whopping $400. To win this incredible prize, you need to go to bit.ly/edtechwin and complete the simple form. It'll take you less than a minute to complete. The link is in the description below. Competition closes on Wednesday the 23rd of December, and the winner will be contacted directly by me and announced in the first episode back in 2021. Thank you for being an extremely important part of the first ever season of the EdTech Chat podcast. When I started the podcast in May in the middle of the Singapore lockdown, I genuinely thought of it as a way to briefly help my PLN connect, engage, and learn in a new format during a trying time. 33 episodes and almost 10,000 downloads later, it's become a staple of your EdTech learning diet. As such, I'm committed to growing this and supporting you in your EdTech needs for free every week. Here are some stats from our 2020 season. 10,000 unique downloads, with 50% of you listening through Apple Podcasts, 66% of you listening from an Apple iPhone, and 79% of you listening on the go on your mobile phone. We have had listeners from 82 different countries or territories, which is an incredible example of the global audience we reach. Our top 5 listener countries are USA, Australia, Singapore, New Zealand, and the United Kingdom, closely followed by Canada, Hong Kong, and India. I can't thank you enough for your support and listenership over the past 6 months. It's truly been an honor to bring you 30 minutes of free EdTech learning every week. The numbers speak for themselves, and I love creating this every week. A special extra thank you to Mark Quinn, who works tirelessly every week behind the scenes to ensure the podcast is of suitable quality to upload to the channel of your choosing. When we return in the new year, the podcast will be renamed to the Ignite EdTech Podcast, and we have many new exciting features, conversations, and prizes planned. You won't need to download anything different. As long as you subscribe, you'll get the new episode on January 22nd, 2021. If you haven't subscribed yet, please go and do that to ensure you don't miss an episode. My last ask for this last episode is to have you rate our podcast. Please spend a few minutes rating it in your podcast channel of choice to help us connect and engage with more EdTech enthusiasts and educators from all over the world. Have a fantastic holiday season, and whatever you celebrate, keep the people you love close and make sure you spread positivity as we embark on an exciting journey in 2021. Take care, and I look forward to seeing you again on January 22nd, 2021.
Thank you for listening to the EdTech Chat Podcast, creating a community for educators to learn, share, and grow. If you liked today's episode, please don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss another episode. and be in the drawing to win prizes every week. If you know others that would enjoy the show, please hit that share button and brighten their day. Join us again next week for your weekly EdTech Hit with @Mr. Kemp NZ. We'll see you again soon.